No, it points to the fact that some people are jobless because I recall what the military command is saying about army deserters, a situation whereby people who really don't have the passion for the job have been enlisted into, well, security agencies. What do we do in such a situation where people, when duty calls, you find them wanting or have disappeared suddenly? Don't you think that's another situation that we as a nation should actually sort out?
Yeah, we should. You see, if you're talking of unemployment, you see, a lot of people go into this security practice to rip off some organizations. You take, for instance, I still come back to the security guards. Some of them are paid as little as 10,000 naira a month. And you expect them to perform. It's not possible. It's definitely not possible. So that's why I say there must be regulation of the guards, the guard companies. The civil defense, in collaboration with the state security service, the police should organize seminars for these people to at least let them know the basics on security and protection. It's important. If we don't do that, we are just deceiving ourselves. We have to go a step further to train the people to know what they are looking for, because you cannot put something on nothing.
But isn't it shocking that after all these years and what keeps going on, this is the case with even the security officials that you happen to meet first on the streets? And those are in fact, they're very important, those ones who are on the streets, and yet this is what we have.
Like I said when we started, we were not prepared for this. You see, another worrisome aspect in our security practice is the issue of this equipment. We need to be properly equipped. You see, at times I get very scared, and I don't want. I resist the temptation of trying to discuss on air a situation where you see over a kilometer-long queue of vehicles. It is very dangerous. So I think that is why it's important that the federal government also should be assisted, or like the federal government talked about obtaining a loan of $1 billion to assist in the fight against. And you see how it was received at the National Assembly. Everybody is concerned. We should go transcend beyond ethnic, religious, or political inclination in this matter, because this is a general concern. The terrorists are common enemies to Nigeria. We must see it as such. And if we can get $1 billion, for instance, what I'm talking about, if you go for good scanners that you store on the road for people to drive through instead of subjecting people to these long queues.
Because we will see some outfits have actually installed some of these scanners.
Yes.
And some of them have the handheld ones. You don't need to, there shouldn't be any queue. Because it may sound basic that, look, if you leave that kind of queue, it's always a soft target.
Oh, sure.
And then people just keep wondering. I mean, from the previous attacks that we've had, that is the kind of scenario how we occur.
They want to exploit.
And then you come in, you recreate that kind of scenario, and people wonder, do we have strategists or people who are overseeing what operations are going on the street? Is there feedback?
There is, but you know, again, the way the terrorists operate, you also have to be a little circumspect. We have to undergo some hardship, some strains. But what I'm saying is not that it should completely be abolished, but we try as much as possible to reduce it to the barest minimum. In terms of long queues, it's very dangerous. Let's face it. It's a dangerous trend where you have long queues of vehicles. The terrorists could exploit it.
You know, I want to go back to the issue of recruitment because you have seen it all before leaving service, and you're still in practice in your own private concern. There's a thing called passion. How do you recognize that in recruitment exercise of security personnel or agents, because when we talk about the money, we all once started doing some form of jobs where we got little or nothing, even as graduates or with 2 or more degrees. So it's not about the money. It's about people getting in there who don't have the passion to serve. Is there a way, as an expert, an intelligence officer, that you can actually recognize those who have the passion so that you don't bring all sorts?
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting question, and I think I'll use this opportunity to throw light on the recruitment process in the State Security Service, which I also want to encourage other security agencies to adopt. You know, you have a whole person concept. Before any person is recruited in the SSS, we must be frank, you know, politicians will come and put pressure on you. But I'll tell you that the present management of the State Security Service does not look at those pressures. In the recruitment process, you must have what we call a whole person concept. You have to look at the person's background, where he was born, all his school career, where, in fact, you must follow his life from the first day he was born till the day he's coming for recruitment. By so doing, you must have some flaws. For instance, if you're employing a graduate in the State Security Service, you shouldn't be above 30 years, which is also applicable to other security services, agencies. Should not be more than 30 years. There are basic educational qualifications. You must be a Nigerian. You must go to your state of origin, where you come from, to be recruited. You don't just pick anybody anywhere. You must go to where you are known, you identify people who know you to your home. I'm not saying it's flawless, but when you take all these measures in place, you are bound to score 80 to 90% in getting the right people for the job. So, and some other agencies also refer their new entrants, their recruits, to the State Security Service for vetting, even political appointees.
You know, I'm happy we're talking about this, because I've been worried, especially lately when the Army called for recruitment from, of personnel into the enlistment into the Nigerian Army. One wonders how we've been able to put in place a stringent screening measure in times where we know the insurgents are capable of infiltrating the rank and file of our operatives. That is where such should come in.
Yeah, it should come in, and that's why I'm recommending that even if you don't intend to use the State Security Service, the agency should liaise with Security Service and have their own vetting section. They have their own vetting sessions where they will be taught on how to do this vetting for their prospective candidate. It's very important, because if you don't do that, you end up recruiting criminals, and that will even compound our problem. You can see people arrested among the various security agencies as criminals. And it is this lack of vetting process that is responsible for this. So it's important that we vet in fact, not just the security agencies, we have to vet our politicians. You know, one of the statutory responsibilities of the State Security Service then was to vet aspiring political office holders. But it got to the point.
They still do, don't they?
Yeah, they do, but even if you have any record, adverse record, against any political office holder, except the employer decides to use it, he is not bound. Because in 1990, I remember in 1998, where there was a conference in an international conference center, where they said, no, the State Security Service has no right to disqualify any candidate. The State Security Service does not disqualify any candidate. What they do is give you the report of the person, the way he is, without bias. So it's left for you to use. But the politicians succeeded in ensuring that it is only the court, not even INEC, that can disqualify a political aspirant. And that was why in 1999, you saw all kinds of people in the National Assembly, in our political... anyway, let me just not use a budget. We saw all kinds of people in 1999. The National Assembly, one retired DIG had to come out to say that some of the people he was here is having here
I
with
think he was a senator at that time.
He was a senator. People he has investigated. So if all these processes have been in place, I don't think we will have challenges. And that is why, even in political office, you have a lot of people who have no conscience. Everybody will call Mr. President, Mr. President. Mr. President cannot be everywhere. I think, much as we agree that the buck stops on his table, his aides and his appointees should also be seen to be doing the right thing. I think that's is a very big challenge.
You know, when we talk about doing the right thing, and people also would want to point fingers at the presidency, you won't blame a lot of Nigerians, especially when sometimes some names pop up as those that have actually, in times past, have a sort of militia group when they were in office, and that has actually metamorphosed into something devilish and a criminal gang, a terror gang upon us today. If we as a people, we have had series of all of that, and once or twice some of the agencies have actually interrogated such individuals, and we still see them walk in the streets as free men, what do you expect of the average Nigerian? He or she will feel that no one gives a hoot about what exactly is happening.
Well, the issue you have raised, you know, I'd rather put it this way. You know, there are some people who you try to turn around, some of the criminals. You re-indoctrinate them to make them better citizens and assist, because they have been on the other side. So you bring them to this side. They will also use their influence to change the society and the environment. I think that explains it. I don't know of any particular case, but you see, like we're talking about Boko Haram now, the insurgency in the northeast. We're talking of a carrot and stick approach. We're talking of negotiations. Some of them who are willing, even though we are aware that these people have perpetrated a lot of crimes and they decide to change, you can absorb them in the system and make them influence peddlers to use them in changing the society. So I think that could explain some of the reasons why you see some of them who are, and of course too, there are provisions for pardon.
Okay, we have to go, but did you offer your services in any way to any group, government, agency? Because you can't let this experience waste after you retire.
Well, that's why I'm here.
No, I mean beyond here.
Beyond here, of course, I liaise with people, I advise people, I run a security consultancy, so if you need my services, you come, we discuss. So I think it's not just, and I also want to encourage retired service personnel to get involved in solving this problem. They shouldn't just sit down at home and expect that the security forces, because you are no more there, you just sit down at home and think all things will work out that way. We need to get involved.
All right, Mr. Mike Ejiofor is the former director of the SSS. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
We'll return in just a moment. Stay with us.